I've been using this coffee machine from Eureka for around 6 months now, and I have to say I like it a lot. It started misbehaving at one point. The pump would run, but the service boiler wouldn't fill, which suggested a faulty solenoid valve. So I'm going to share troubleshooting that with you because it's often possible to test the coil without disassembling or even disconnecting it. So let's get into it straight away.
Oh my God.
It's like a miracle.
Some people ask, why do we need another E-61 machine when it's a 65-year-old design and there are newer group types? And my answer is, first, it works as well as any other. And second, because it's ubiquitous, buy one today and you'll still be able to buy a rebuild kit 50 years from now. My only criticism of the E-61 is that it is energy inefficient, something I would consider in a busy commercial setting. But that's not relevant in home use when it's only on for an hour or so each day. A saturated group might be more temperature stable by about 1 degree Celsius, but really, who cares? There are groups with resistance heat that show an improvement in efficiency and are slightly more temperature stable or repeatable, but again, the E-61 works perfectly if the operator has a bit of skill and insight. And I like the lever so that I can do a manual pre-infusion based on weight instead of a programmed one based on time where you press a button. I prefer measuring output because you have different coffees and different grinds and so on. If you're using time as an arbitrary constant, then your degree of puck saturation will be variable. It has to be. If you make output weight your constant, then you know that the puck will be fully saturated before you bring on the pressure, which is the whole bloody point of pre-infusion. This one uses a heat exchanger, and I like it because after a quick initial flush of about 100 milliliters or so, you only have fresh water passing through the heat exchanger, hence the coffee, and I think I can taste the difference, especially when it comes to stainless boilers. Copper boilers, I think, are less likely to contribute odd flavors. The machine is very easy to open. 2 screws for the top panel, and 4 for the shroud, which is one piece and comes away easily. Looking inside, you can see it's very compact with the one boiler. Great for the kitchen counter, especially in an apartment, but not ideal if you like to get your hands dirty. Still, you have access to many of the items that you might need to replace, like the vacuum breaker valve, the overpressure breaker, and the water level probe, and so on. Here's the hot water coming off the top of the boiler, so it obviously must have a dip tube inside. Notice the steam line, which is narrow and very short. That short run prevents condensation, so you get nice dry steam. It won't dilute your milk. In the original review, I mentioned that the steam performance here is very good, taking 400 milliliters of refrigerated milk from 8.4 degrees Celsius to 62 degrees in just over 40 seconds, and this design here is the chief reason why. Flash boiling is, of course, an issue with any heat exchanger unit that's been idle for any amount of time, but I find that a 6-second flush brings it back to temperature and repeated use keeps it quite stable. I said I had reason to suspect the solenoid valve, and I want to show you how to test the coil in situ, but this machine is too tightly packed. But assume, for the sake of argument, that the valve is easily accessible. To test the coil, you would simply disconnect the spade connectors, then test across the coil with an ohmmeter or a multimeter looking at the resistance. I have to remove mine and check it on the bench because of its location and orientation. What you don't want to see here is either infinite resistance, which would indicate that the coil has failed open, or no resistance, which would indicate a short. If either is the case, the coil is bad and you needn't bother looking forward. Order a new valve. Here you see that there's no problem as it's showing over 2.7 kiloohms, which indicates a perfectly healthy coil. Yours might show a different value, but it's going to be thousands of ohms. So if the coil's good, that means I will need to disassemble the valve to locate the fault. There is what I would call a generous amount of PTFE tape in use here. These machines are made by Nuovo Simonelli, a respected maker of commercial machines, including commercial heat exchange machines, whose grinders might look familiar to Eureka users. And voila! I'm not sure if you can see this clearly, it's tiny. I'll shake it onto a piece of paper. You can see a 14mm combination wrench here for scale. It might surprise you that something so small could cause trouble, but unfortunately, a little bit of lime scale or any solid contaminant can be an issue. I'll chuck it under the microscope, and yeah, I have no idea what it is or where it might have come from. It's obviously man-made, is about all I can tell you. Some fragment from the microplastic cloud enveloping the world these days, undoubtedly for the better. I'll just open the solenoid and remove the plunger to make sure there's no debris in there and that the O-ring on the plunger is intact and seated. And yeah, no issues here. After reassembling and reinstalling, everything has gone perfectly well since. So, is there anything I don't like about it? After 6 months, I haven't got any fresh complaints. In the original review, I mentioned 2 issues. The water tank is too small, in my opinion, at 2 liters capacity, and the drip tray is much too small at 1 liter, especially with a heat exchange unit, where you're flushing before each shot or series of shots. You need to flush into a separate container, and even so, it really fills up fast. Of course, its compact size overall is one of its virtues, so this is a trade-off, but personally, I would readily accept a bit more height in exchange for a deeper drip tray. Other than that, I really have no complaints. It's a good quality machine, but not cheap. They're made in Italy, not China. But it's attractive, it uses a proven design, of course, it's well built, and very compact for you apartment dwellers. I'd be happy to keep it, but it was a gift, so I will have to pass it along. I'll likely sell it and donate the proceeds to a charity. If you missed the original, longer review, you might want to check that out. Well, that's about all for today. I'll be back soon, I don't know exactly when I have something new to share. I'm not going to post videos repeating myself just to have stuff to upload, so, I'll have to have something to say before I start saying it. I'll get on to the next video as soon as the spirit moves me. So, keep in touch. Cheers!